It's finally here! The follow-up to Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. A wait of nearly 6 years comes to a close with the release of the soon-to-be blockbuster hit Metal Gear Solid 5. The latest in the exciting stealth action series has at last arrived, fully featured and ready to blow everything else out of the water. Just kidding, this is a 2-hour-long paid demo. Now Konami, I can appreciate the fact that you've basically ruined every franchise you own except for Metal Gear, and you guys need to turn a profit somehow, but cutting off the prologue chapter to Metal Gear Solid 5 and selling it to everybody at least a year before the full game is released may come off as just a tad desperate. I mean, can you imagine if back in the year 2000, Konami had been like, yo, MGS2 is coming next year, in the meantime here's the tanker chapter, that'll be 20 quid, BRB. I mean, hey, this is putting to one side the whole questionable aspect of whether or not you should even be making more Metal Gear games. I don't know about anybody else, but I was pretty positive I was playing the end of Metal Gear when the main character beat up the final boss in the middle of the ocean to the tune of every battle theme in this series and then died? I mean, what are we doing here exactly? Telling Big Boss's story now? Oh yay, more games to ruin Snake Eater's great ending. Can't wait to have the beautifully inferred descent into villainy of Big Boss spelled out to me like a 5-year-old throughout a bunch of unnecessary stories. But more to the point, when exactly did I sign up for this Big Boss guy to suddenly be the protagonist of the series? Metal Gear Solid 3 was a great prequel, but that's all it was or needed to be. Metal Gear is the story of Solid Snake's story ended, so can we not make something else, Kojima? Zone of the Enders, Snatcher, just a new franchise, period? Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes takes place in the 1970s, where our equipment has to be more old school and primitive. But psych, not really, because we've contrived a way to have futuristic holographic technology somehow. You know, the point of setting all the Metal Gear games years after their release date is so we can have extravagant tech, right? You can't then set the series over 30 years ago and roll with the same space-age gizmos. Come to think of it, why do all these Metal Gear games take place in olden times now? Yeah, I know the original two were set in the 90s, but Metal Gear's always been rooted in the advancement of technology, the world of science gone rampant. Hell, the eponymous Metal Gear is a goddamn giant robot. So why am I suddenly playing the Great Escape Kojima edition? I mean, I'm not surprised by all this, really. We're talking about an extremely rare scenario in which a series has been directed by one man for nearly 30 years. So no shit is the guy gonna get bored and start doing things that have nothing to do with the series he's been building. Usually big franchises like this switch between different directors over the years, so the original themes, settings, and characters are kept consistent and we're not being flung all over the place every other title. And, wait a second, putting all that to one side, what story are we even trying to tell here anymore? We know everything that happens. 5 Metal Gear games take place after the upcoming Phantom Pain. We know how it ends. Do you know why something like Metal Gear Rising works as a new story? Because Raiden isn't f***ing dead. All these characters, they're already dead. You dead. You dead. You dead. You definitely dead. So who cares? But anyway, I did, believe it or not, actually play Ground Zeroes on the PS3, unfortunately. I ain't dropping 400 quid on a PS quadruple for 2 hours of sequel teasing quite yet, so I'm having to roll with a lackluster 30 FPS and 720p for now. The game honestly confirms most of my fears when it comes to the direction the series is being taken. The cutscene cinematography is a much more modern, gritty, shaky cam feel to it that really comes off as alien in comparison to the rest of the series. What makes the cutscenes in Metal Gear so entertaining is the way they let loose and indulge in their lunacy while still remaining deliberate and classy in presentation. Huh. You're not the boss, are you? The score and cinematography in comparison comes off as a little generic here. Combine this with the decision to change Big Boss's voice actor from series mainstay David Hayter to 24-star Kiefer Sutherland and things start to get super jarring.
Fine. I like some alone time now and then.
Sutherland doesn't just sound nothing like Big Boss, but his tone of voice makes our protagonist sound younger than he was in the previous game.
I don't have a name. Stop using that code name you liked so much 10 years ago.
So what's the plan? Silence her before we're compromised?
Hayter's performance not only gave a lot of personality to the character, but as someone who's been voicing this protagonist for years, he's been able to build subtleties and nuances into Snake's delivery that Sutherland is unable to replicate. It feels so out of place to hear what just sounds like some random guy who is supposedly Snake talking to all these other characters who still possess their original voice actors.
What's up, Huey?
Our guests are right on time.
The chosen setting also forces the gameplay to take a step backwards from Guns of the Patriots. Setting MGS4 in the near future, which ironically is now present day, meant that all kinds of innovations could be added to further the gameplay, from the Octo camo suit to weapon upgrading to all sorts of other gizmos and gadgets. Now that we're jumping back again though, there really isn't much novel here at the moment. The selling point this time around is the new open world features that let Snake get to his objective by navigating a square mile of terrain, and you know, whatever, it has its charm. Planning an entrance point or escape route does give the game a little more flair and spontaneity, though with the limited terrain offered here, it's hard to tell how far this concept will eventually be taken when the full game ends up coming out. The game actually does require a little more stealth this time around. Yeah, who would have thought? Since a lot more objectives now require Snake to arrive at his destination undetected, which splits the game up nicely into some good old-fashioned sneaking and the extraction objectives, which can quickly turn from calculated escaping into an exciting mad dash to the exit point. The addition of a slow-mo reaction time effect being activated when spotted by an enemy is a clear attempt to mitigate the frustration of how easy it is to get caught in the now rather open environments. But it still doesn't stop it from coming off as cheap on the part of the player to become the goddamn point man every time a foe so much as glances at Snake. It's just way too easy to prevent an alert phase now, especially with the sniper rifle on hand.
CP, this is Zone 4.
Of course, Ground Zeroes is but a taster. I beat the main mission in under an hour and a half, and this is me we're talking about here. Instead, most of the content is allocated to extra side missions, which involve completing random made-up objectives to let the player rationalize paying money for this thing. The title is also a clear showcase of its tech, and I'll admit, even chugging along on the PS3, the engine has its impressive moments. Lighting, for example, is especially nice, even simulating Snake having to readjust his eyes to its intensity when leaving an interior area. Rounding out the game is a platform-exclusive mission, and I got to say, playing this on a Sony device, I can't help but feel a bit shortchanged. If one purchases Ground Zeroes on a Microsoft console, then the extra mission involves hunting down snatchers as Cyborg Ninja Raiden. On Sony systems, walk about a bit trying to look at things that resemble events from MGS1. Yay? This doesn't even make any sense. It's nonsensical and pandering even for the Metal Gear series. What's deja vu about recalling events that occur 30 years later from the perspective of a completely different character? While I see potential in some aspects of Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zeroes really hasn't got me all that excited for the continuing milking of the Solid series. Even to fans who are excited to keep playing, nothing much happens in Ground Zeroes that I think really justifies purchasing it. The plot can be summarized in a sentence, probably a couple of words actually if you watch some of the trailers, and none of the gameplay introduced here is really groundbreaking enough to warrant such a pricey sampling. Ground Zeroes is nothing to write home about, but hey, Kojima and the gang have surprised us in the past before, so I guess, yeah, you never know. Maybe next time. Whenever that will be. It's probably gonna be like a couple years, I don't even know why I'm bothering so early. I got better things to do anyway, like getting my show up and running again. It's been ages. Might as well get to work on that then.